Hello, Bariatric Warriors. We are back with a new episode of the Bariatric Warrior podcast, here advocating and supporting the bariatric community through the ups and the downs, where we share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm Steph.
And I'm Bex.
And we are so happy you are here with us today. So let's get into it. Hello, warriors. Today we have a special guest. His name is Daryl, or you might know him as Your Level Fitness. Let our viewers know who you are, Daryl.
Well, my name is Daryl Perry, and yes, online you can find me either under my name or Your Level Fitness, and the messaging is very similar both places. I talk about from a health and fitness perspective. I just want you to appreciate the person underneath, be comfortable in your own skin. I also talk a lot about emotional awareness, working through stuff, because as you both know, if you've been through life, you get into your 30s, your 40s, you've been through a lot of stuff. There's a lot to untangle. There's a lot to work through. And I think we all could use a good therapist. So these are things that I talk about, whether it's social media, podcasting, of course, duh, why not? Email, blog, all that stuff. So I'm literally everywhere. There you go.
Yeah.
We like that. We're literally everywhere too.
We're trying.
Yes, you are.
Right.
Yes.
We're trying. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your journey. What brought you to this point in your life with podcasting, with spreading this message?
Sure. So for me, I started exercising regularly when I was probably about 12 or 13 years old. I was born premature, diagnosed with cerebral palsy at 2 years old, had some delays with benchmarks as a kid, and was in physical therapy most of my life. For those of you that grew up in the 80s and 90s, I was considered a husky child by the time I was about 7 or 8. I remember they used to actually weigh us, our class, like they would weigh us individually. The nurse would like call out the number. And I remember in 3rd grade, all the other kids were like 40 and 50 pounds, and I was 80, and I can still hear the audible gasp of these children. And it's funny because when I started getting into the fitness space and into social media and connecting with people, I asked a couple people my age, and I'm like, was that a thing? Like, because it just seems, with the way the world is now, were we really putting kids in a big group like this and yelling out their current weight numbers? But yeah, a lot of people do remember it. I see you guys kind of nodding your head on that as well.
I do.
And that was probably the first time I was aware of my body. Before that, it wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it just was. And now that my weight was called out and people were not happy with it, I was now not happy with it. So that was a seed that was planted. I did have a really good introduction with exercise and orthopedic that I was working with. Wanted to incorporate lifting, strength training with my exercises for physical therapy. So he positioned it in a very curious way so that I was very excited about it. And I've had this lifelong relationship with exercise that's actually been really positive. But then, same stuff that a lot of us, I think, went to as kids. I was very shy. Food was comfort for me. I would gain weight. Again, I didn't necessarily know how much weight I wanted to lose, but I knew that I was heavier than most people. And then when I was in high school, I started seeing the men's fitness magazines, the Muscle and Fitness, and there's a lot of talk about the body image stuff that was thrown out at women in the late 90s, early 2000s. Straight up awful. America's Top Model, Tyra Banks, shut your mouth, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of it was there for guys too. We're focused on our arms, we're focused on our stomachs, and it was this message of, if you want people to like you, you need to look like this. So I spent the better part of the next 5-10 years chasing that, realizing that no matter how small I got, how big I got, I didn't like who I saw in the mirror. So then I went to school, switched to marketing, happened to just start to really get interested in how the food industry and the weight loss industry kind of built this entire multi-billion-dollar industry, like really out of nothing. And seeing the tips and tricks and see how most of the processed foods are engineered to these bliss points where we're all kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm losing control. Well, it was designed to be that way. So then I started working at a gym. Fortunately, the owner of the club took one look at me. I loved exercising. Well, because about probably 3/4 of my body is noticeably impacted by this disability that I have. So he's like, well, if he can do it, anybody can do it. So he wanted to have me in the gym, wanted to have me do the thing. And the first thing I noticed that really caught my eye with the gym after I'd been there for probably a couple months is that I was in sales, but I would also do personal training. Certifications were nice to have, but you didn't necessarily need them back then.
Yeah.
So I would do training, but I also would work the front desk. And I just remember people would come in, and when they signed up, they were like looking down at the ground. They're scared to go in. Gym intimidation has always been a thing, right? But if they were able to not only do the workouts, but like they started to see themselves differently, and you would notice how people are carrying themselves differently. So that's what hooked me on the industry. If this can be used as a vehicle to really make people feel better about themselves, I had no idea what it was then, but I mean, it's basically fostering confidence within yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what got me hooked. I then worked in marketing and advertising for the better part of a decade and a half. 5 years into that career, I decided I wanted to get a personal training certification. Didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do with it. Got it, sat on it, started doing some adaptive group classes for adults with CP over at United Cerebral Palsy. Started doing regular group fitness. This was like 2014, 2015. So group fitness was huge, lots of circuits and things like that. I did some coaching for a running group, Couch to 5K, Couch to 10K. I did that for a few years. Then I started doing one-on-one training for a couple studios, did some in-home stuff, and then started to build something online. And what I noticed when I started on Instagram, because that's where I posted most of my content at first. This is like probably 2016, 2017. And like all the trainers are posting the motivational quotes and Motivational Monday, come do your thing, and Transformation Tuesday and all this. And I was doing what everybody else was doing. And I remember I posted a message one day about don't let the scale number define you. And I remember one of my followers was like, thank you, I needed to hear this. At the time, I was trying to post every day, multiple times a day. And I remember a couple weeks later, I didn't have anything ready, and I just went through my camera roll, and I'm like, oh, this will do, this picture from 2 weeks ago. The same person was like, thanks, I needed to hear this today. I'm like, you heard it before. So what that taught me is no matter what our messages are, we need to say the same. I feel like I talk about probably the same 2 or 3 dozen things over and over, but my hope is if I say it in one slightly different way today versus what I did a couple weeks ago, that it's really going to resonate with somebody. When I started podcasting, it was actually for my clients. I wanted to be in their ear every single day, reinforcing the stuff that we were talking about. For me, and you guys, you know how scary this is when you first started. You get this microphone, and heaven forbid you actually hear your voice after you record. Does anybody actually listen? Do you listen to your... Exactly.
Steph listens for me, and I go...
Exactly.
But
sounds
like,
good.
When we were Road to Discovery podcast, we were doing it through Zoom, and all you could hear is me talking really loudly and everyone very softly in the background.
Yeah.
So now we've learned things. We took the critiques and we made a change. And yes, Bex, I've had multiple people tell me that the sound quality is so much better.
Oh, good. Yeah, but yeah, I don't listen because I hate my voice, and the idea of listening to it, yeah, it makes me cringe.
There is a meme I remember that it was it's Loki, and it's like the copy, who is this strange man's voice? And every time I see it, I'm like, that's me when I hear myself podcasting. It's like, who is this this person?
You feel like you're a different person for sure. It's very disorienting because the voice that you hear in your ears and in your head that resonates here is very different than the voice out. That's why, like, when you hear your own voicemail, you're like, oh, ew, who's that? You know? So yeah, it's
I always think I sound like a little kid. If I hear myself in a recording, I feel like I sound like I'm 4.
Yeah.
No.
Who is this child? She needs a nap, right? Yeah.
I do need a nap.
Don't we all? I feel like,
every day.
My
all
gosh.
Day.
Yeah, but I got into podcasting, and then with life circumstances, I used to always say with therapy, well, it's part of the bad rap that therapy gets. Everybody thinks that if you go to therapy, it's just so you can have somebody to listen to you, which, by the way, for many people, that might be what they need because they've literally gone through their entire life and nobody has heard a single word that they've said.
Or they're verbal processors. Like
yes.
So talk out 12 times before I get it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And it's not that I'm not paying attention. Like, I need to hear it multiple times. No, I totally get it. And I remember thinking, because something I used to say on podcast was like, well, you'll probably eventually figure it out on your own, but you'll get there faster if you work with a therapist. Now, I went to therapy with an open mind, and fortunately, I clicked with my second therapist, and it was probably after a couple of sessions because she's around my age. She's in entrepreneurship. Her husband's in entrepreneurship. Her husband actually was a personal trainer in person and online. So we had some commonality. And then I noticed she was able to call out blind spots that I was not willing to see or maybe didn't see in a very disarming way. I was like, you and I are going to be working together for a very long time. I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of men about their experience in therapy. And sometimes on social media, I literally will just do a video where it's like, hey man, go to therapy. That's the message. And I'll get a bunch of comments. No. And I'll get some guys that are actually involved in it. But like, I think everybody could benefit from having a productive working relationship with a therapist. It's not easy to come by. Nope. Therapy in general is not easy to come by. We have some accessibility issues there, but I do think all of this stuff is connected. I think a lot of times with what we see with not just weight loss and weight gain, but the relationship we have with food and exercise ties into how we see ourselves. And it's a lot of...
Massively.
Yeah, and a lot of what we see physically on the outside is a byproduct of what's going on inside. And it's rocky road for many of us, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with that. It's one of the reasons why, like, I'd say that most of my personal training sessions are not that much training.
Right.
There's a lot of talking. There's a lot of deconstructing diet culture and trauma and emotional stuff, and what more goes into your relationship with food and your relationship with your body than what's on the outside or what we think it is. And it's so much deeper than that. And I have a background in therapy. I have a psych degree. Yeah. I was a social worker for years. I was a drug and alcohol counselor. I have that background, so I'm able to offer at least a surface level of that before I'm like, hey, maybe this is deeper than what I can do. Let's go to a therapist. And I'm always telling them, do you have a therapist? Because I can only chat about really surface level stuff in relation to exercise in your body and food. And there's a scope of practice that I can't do. And I always am saying, like, do you have a therapist?
I am so glad that you use the term scope of practice, because it's very defined on what we can actually go into detail about.
Yeah.
But you got to be really good about referral, but you also have to be really good about cutting through the nonsense that people see every day. I mean, my gosh, the stuff that you guys both see. I mean, Bex, you mentioned your background. I know, Stephanie, you being in healthcare, like, same thing. People are out of their mind online talking about this stuff and stepping over boundaries and all kinds of stuff. There's a lot to navigate, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we always say in the weight loss surgery realm, which I feel like you can use this in any health journey realm, is like, this journey is 90% mindset. The other 10% is intentionally moving your body, fueling your body with protein, giving yourself your vitamins, drinking your water. And like we say, don't let the scale define you as well in the bariatric community, because like you were saying, the industry standards put this image in your mind. And so we're all like, fad diet, fad diet, fad diet, playing into diet culture, trying to get there. You lose 40 pounds, but then you put on 100. Type of thing, because it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. Yeah, exactly.
And so until 20 something years ago, people saw obesity as, well, you're just fat and this has nothing to do with your genetics, but it has everything to do with your genetics. And I'm really happy that they broke the stigma around that.
I mean, they're working on it. It's not done yet.
I mean,
there's still so much crap.
We are here trying to break the stigma around
exactly.
the chronic disease of obesity and how it's related to genetics. And so whether you've had surgery or you haven't, they are very much similar in terms of, yes, you go to therapy. Even before bariatric surgery, you have to have an appointment with a therapist and evaluate. You didn't have to have an evaluation.
I paid out of
pocket too, and still had to do an evaluation with a therapist. And they have to ask you a question about if your microwave talks to you, and I've never understood that.
I'm assuming it's about like serious mental illness, like schizophrenia,
or like food noise, or like food. You just, when you open the fridge, your fridge is talking to you, and your food's probably talking to you, saying, "Hey, are you hungry?" I don't know. if
like,
you are
that's not how
listening to
food noise
this,
works. Food noise is
if
not
you are
external.
if you are listening to this
I'm so
podcast
confused.
and you're a therapist
Please
and
don't
you
say
could
those
answer
things.
this question for me, please tell me why they ask you this in your eval.
I think I filled out one piece of paper with some like general questions about why I was doing it, my urge to do it, what I had tried before this to lose weight. But yeah, there was no psych eval for me. But as we know, it doesn't matter how you lose the weight.
Yeah.
All of this impacts. And that was one of the things I do is I treat a person as a whole human, because it's not just exercise. It's not just food. It's not just genetics. It's not just one thing. It's everything together is what causes barriers. It's everything together that causes you to not be able to move forward in your weight loss. And so we can't just be like, okay, so what are the only barriers stopping you from going to the gym? It's everything. It's
transportation, finances.
Yeah. It goes
all
way
those things.
And this is what this is why I love podcasting, because you can actually unpack this stuff in an actual conversation. We were talking 5 minutes ago about scope of practice and how you have to be very cautious about navigating and not crossing lines, but at the same time there's so much balancing that you have to do, because this is a very comprehensive situation. And one of the things that always irks me, and people still do it, you're talking about how everything was 20 years ago, it was rampant then. I can't stand people talking at me. I can't stand fitness professionals standing up, whether they're in the gym or in my phone, like, you need to do this. You need to want to do it. You don't want enough. And it's like, I don't think when somebody posts something, like, perfect example, well, we all have the same 24 hours in the day.
Oh my God, I hate it.
Anytime. The only people you see in the comments are people that are working out. I've never seen anybody that's been like, oh my gosh, you know what? You're right. I'm going to the gym tomorrow. It's always like 100%, no excuses. Bah. It's like, who are you talking to? Right.
That's black and white thinking, which is literally something that we talk about in the weight loss community of like, there is no black and white. There is only gray. If you think that way, if you think that the only thing stopping you is because you're lazy, because that's what that sentence says, right? The sentence of we have the same 24 hours, it puts that blame entirely on you as some sort of moral failing, that you're just this lazy person who can't get to the gym. And that's all it is. That's all it boils down to. But we know that's not even close to true.
And you're not helping anyone. I will tell you, anybody that has been on a weight loss journey for years, decades, most of their life, like many of us are aware of our bodies and our situation when we're kids. And it's like, if you don't think that these are human MyFitnessPal databases that know every bit of calorie, macro, every particular diet, what's the good on this program, the bad on this program, and how they can never mix. They know this stuff. Wanting to change isn't the problem. It's cutting through all of the noise.
Everything else.
Yeah, and everything can be a tool, but not everything is going to be a tool for you at this particular point in your life. And it's very overwhelming. I'll have to say, I think food noise is definitely real. I feel like, at least on my radar, over the last couple of years, when the GLP-1s really started to take off, that's when I started to hear about food noise, like, actually all the time. It is all the time. Now everybody's bringing up food noise. So I think it's good to bring it up to the forefront. At the same time, I think we have to be careful with things. There's so much information. There's so many opportunities out there, and people are desperately trying to find what works for them, but it's hard to find what works for you when you're being told by so many people, you need to do this and you need to do this.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah. There's almost too much input. And then a lot of the information out there, a lot of the message out there is very shamey and blamey. And it makes you just feel worse about yourself. Because here's the thing, if you ask those fitness influencers who give these black and white, like, you got to do this or else you're going to fail kind of bullshit, if you were to ask them what is their one thing that they want, and the one thing that they want is for people to succeed and go to the gym and work out and achieve their goals, but they do it in a way that stops people from doing that. And it's frustrating to see that out in that space. And then you have to navigate all the noise and all the bullshit to try to find what works for you and your body. And I think that's why I've always loved your whole platform and premise and goal for people, because you meet them exactly where they are and you help them find that way forward and cutting through the bullshit, cutting through the noise. And
yeah, when you come into the industry or come into a new way of doing something, you look around and see what everybody's doing. And at first I was just trying to fit in. And then I was like, well, you know what? if I'm offering what everybody else is doing, why am I here? And I think now, and Bex, I'm sure you've seen this over the last few years, coaching and personal training is not what it was 5 years ago. The pandemic changed everything. And since then, it's completely different. And I actually took a couple of years where I was still podcasting in the space, but I wasn't working in the space. So when I came back to it, this was completely different. It literally took me about 9 months just to figure out where there might be an opportunity to do something different. And I call it the YLF experience because I've looked at what group coaching is now, and I don't like it. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think that the good coaches and trainers are going to evolve. The people that aren't necessarily wanting to work, which it's really weird in the fitness space. We have people that do want to train, but they don't, like, they'll tell people that they need to have discipline in the gym and show up all the time, but ask them to actually do something for their business, or actually, I don't know, do something that isn't templated for their clients. Finding a space was challenging. And then looking at this now, you have AI all over the place. You have algorithms changing. And you have to figure out how to use, much like when we talk about all the stuff with eating and exercise, you have all of these tools that are there, and how can you cut through the noise? So, that's basically my offering is I put all my information out there organized in ways that people can use it on their own, because again, I want everybody to be comfortable in their own skin. If I'm working one-on-one with people, that's a maximum of 10 to 12 people. Then what happens when they stop working with me, which you should. I'm a firm believer of, unless somebody just really wants to hang out with me but knows everything that they need to know, I don't want lifelong clients.
Yeah.
A joke I used to have was, we can be friends forever, but you're only going to be working with me for a couple of years. But if I do that, and even if I do the group coaching model, then at most I'm only impacting maybe a few dozen people. So I had to look at this and say, okay, I want to take the best elements of group coaching, which I see a lot of group coaches are, okay, we're going to have 1 to 2 calls a week for clients. I'm like, that's not good. We're going to do 4. So I have 4 calls with my clients. The live streams that I do, which I actually am testing this thing, and I know, Stephanie, you saw it today. I'm basically taking those formats and I'm going to do what I'm calling community calls for basically anybody else. If you're on social media, if you're interacting with my stuff, if you want to hop on the live, if you want to submit topics and you want to go back and forth, I think that's where we can put context to people's situation at scale. So I think the calls are huge. And I do these outside of social media because I feel like social has gotten so noisy. So for me to put a message out and say, hey, appreciate who you are inside and out, love your body, and then they scroll and literally the next 6 videos they see are the exact opposite of what I just said, it's pointless. So I do that, and then I use some of the, not really the automations for the content, because when I worked in marketing, I would work with a copywriter and do a lot of the editing and the formatting for emails, for blogs, for even some like traditional things like postcards that people don't really do anymore. But I basically will take my transcript. I do have some AI prompts that I wrote and rewrote and have kind of edited over the last couple of years. And that's how I get ahead on my content. I schedule it ahead of time. But all the stuff that I do, all the systems in place, are so I can have more time either on the group calls or one-on-one with clients. And if somebody's onboarding, they basically sign up and they book an onboarding call with me. I feel like with all the information I put out, all the podcasts I do, if you sign up with me, there should be no mystery. But I want to make sure before we get started. So more self-paced resources for you guys to do it on your own, because I think that's really important. Because if we're going to change what people focus on and people are going to actually appreciate what and who they see in the mirror, got to give them the resources, got to reinforce that message over and over, because ultimately eating and exercise is important. You're going to be doing it for decades, for the rest of your life, but it's so much better if you actually enjoy it. Not like, I wish I enjoyed it, I should enjoy it, but I actually like what I'm doing.
I talk a lot about that with clients too, because I have clients who are like, well, I should probably start, lifting weights and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, do you enjoy lifting weights? If you don't enjoy lifting weights, then why would we do that? I have some clients that like my program for them is just go move your body. However feels good for you. If you just want to take a walk, great. If you want to go join a dance class, great. I can't teach you how to dance because I don't dance. But my goal for you is just to move your body. I love, Daryl, that you had a wonderful relationship with exercise starting very young. Most of us don't, myself included. I had to learn to love exercise, and I'm still, to this day, reworking my relationship with exercise because there's still some negative stuff in there that I'm always dealing with. And this client was like, I want to move my body, but every time I do, I start to feel self-hatred and guilt and shame and this need to earn it and earn my food and work out so hard that I puke. And I was like, I know that feeling because that was me my entire like childhood was exercising till I vomited, exercising till I fell over. And that's not sustainable. It's not healthy. And so I literally gave her the challenge of, I just want you to find one thing that involves moving your body that you enjoy. Even if that's just walking around a museum or a Saturday market, I don't care. You're moving your body. Whereas before you would have just sat at home and not moved. So I was trying to relearn that relationship with her body and with movement and equating it with joy rather than self-hatred.
I think, and when you're able to have that thought process, all of this stuff that is overwhelming, I don't want to do it, I'm intimidated by it. You then look at the world around you and you start seeing opportunities. You start seeing things that you're curious about. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of stuff that I feel like we need to get people back to. I have a hunch. I'm considered an elder millennial. I think all millennials we are at the point where we've seen all of this technology. I think we, in our minds, probably peaked with it somewhere in 2006, 2007 when MySpace was still around. And then ever since then, it's just been like, here's something new. Try this, try this. And I think we're tired. I think that we want to rewind things. I think we've lost ourselves in a bunch of different areas. And I think we just want to simplify. And I think a lot of that starts with connecting with and getting to know ourselves again. I guess one thing we could talk about as we're over 30 minutes into the conversation, we've kind of alluded to the fact that I've not had bariatric surgery, but I've somehow infiltrated my way into the bariatric community.
We love it.
And how that happened is, so another thing I did with my podcast, after about 6 months of doing solo episodes, I always said I wasn't going to interview anybody because I was terrified that I would interrupt them. My brain moves incredibly fast. I know. I got over it extremely quickly, but before I started, I was terrified to do that. But when I started seeing more bariatric patients on Instagram, I was curious about it because I would have people want to work with me. Do you have bariatric clients? And I was upfront and honest. At the time, I didn't. My first bariatric.
I do.
What's that? Well,
that's
but what I
work with bariatrics.
She only works bariatric patients.
Mm-hmm.
You only work with bariatric patients?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, currently, I would want to work with everybody, but yeah, so far it's only been
so
bariatric.
When I started, like I told you guys, I started with group fitness. I was doing adaptive. Mm-hmm. And then I gradually started to branch out. I was always curious about what other people were interested in doing. So that started with diets because I came from a very balanced, calorie counting, use my fitness pal, very basic stuff. Well, keto was huge at this time. So I coached some people through keto. I had a primary plant-based client that I worked with. I had a lot through Weight Watchers. Now, Weight Watchers always seems to want to change their program. It depends on what's popular at the time. But I learned the ins and outs. Well, but I mean, their freestyle program, if you set it up properly, the one that they had probably about 5 or 6 years ago, actually was a really good program. If you kind of Weight Watchered it, and basically looked at all your 0-point foods and front loaded your pre-tracking with that, then you could fill in the gaps. But people didn't want to do that. They wanted to. I can't believe that I'm going to get 0 points if I eat 12 bananas. I'm like, when are you going to eat 12 bananas? But I'm not, but I might. But that's a legit conversation. Like, that is, so.
But the whole point is eat more fiber.
Yeah.
All the 0-point foods were fruits and veggies. They were all things that were really good for you.
And lean protein. It's like, it's like what they're doing is they're trying to fill you up first and then you use your points. You should never go over. And then they're telling you that you can bank these and have you actually can have weeklies. Yeah.
That's
so I mean so I mean it was a good program. But anyway, I started interviewing people that had bariatric surgery just to let me know more about their experience. Mm-hmm. The first client I worked with really had already lost the weight, but we were working on the inside approach. And I had some clients, I had some friends that I met. Addie's daddy was Jeremy's, probably he was one of the first, one of the closest ones. And then, Rob and I met, Busy Bariatrics. And spoiler alert, you guys probably already know if you're part of it, but I am going to be speaking at summer camp again. By the time this comes out, I'm still going to be speaking. I haven't spoken yet, but I will be soon. So yeah, I mean, I just kind of got involved with a lot of folks within the community. Everybody kind of knows everybody else, so I feel like through that, I've at least been introduced to most people in the bariatric community.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's an important space for you to be at because of your message, because so much of us come from such a really negative background with food and exercise and our bodies. That is a space where you can help fill that in and help people.
Definitely.
And also, I mean, from the chronic illness point of view, which is what a lot of what Steph and I talk about, we need adaptive. We need people to modify stuff for us and help us work through those issues and feeling like we can't. So that's one of the questions I have for you is, what are some tips that you would give to somebody who wants to exercise, but is either maybe too scared to, or maybe has limitations, injury or illness or whatever?
I will say start with doing stretches or yoga in bed. And something that is a very general message that a lot of people put out, but I personally, at this particular moment, because I've been dealing with a torn fascia, could not do this. They say, well, just go out and walk, right? Well, everybody can walk. Not everybody can walk.
Everybody.
Right? So I think a lot of times it's looking at what your environment is and what is it that you're willing and able to do? I would say for about 8 or 9 people out of 10, they're going to have an activity that they at least are like, okay, this is accessible to me. I'm willing to do it. Can you do it for even 5 minutes? Because as we know, you can start small and the momentum is going to build to whatever it's going to build. I will say to anybody listening, I like to cap the workouts. I try not to train any longer than 60 minutes. As a matter of fact, if I'm in there for an hour, I'm not as focused as I should be. And I say that because I think, again, in this, if some is good, more is better mentality, people can very easily get themselves trying to work out for 90 minutes, 2 hours a day, which sounds absolutely awful to me at this point in my life. But again, I think you start with where you are. I'm a big fan of, I'm doing chair yoga right now. Now, my ego in the past, I've done P90X in my life. I used to do that. If you guys have ever tried it, the yoga was crazy. It was like 2 hours long.
Yeah.
So I would try to do that. But I'm at the point now, I signed up for DDPY. So it's Diamond Dallas Page Yoga, this old professional wrestler. So not going to stereotype, but a lot of guys around my age will gravitate towards that. And I think that's who he originally made a lot of this for. But I like it because I can do a chair program. At this point, I'm not trying to prove that, I don't need the chair. I can just stand up and do all of it. I do the chair program. They've got tons of, they even have a starting in bed program. And even if you have physical limitations, there's a good chance that at some point you've probably been to physical therapy. You can lean on your experience in physical therapy, do these rehab exercises in bed. That's a wonderful starting point. And if you have one of the watches that can track your workouts, amazing how all this technology works now, right? Things that 15, 20 years ago, if you would say, hey, you're going to have this piece of technology on your wrist that's going to cost a couple $100 and it's not going to be 100% accurate, but it's going to give you so much data that you can at least look at and get an idea.
It's like 70% accurate.
Yeah,
is it
the calorie count? I think is the most inaccurate piece.
Probably.
Even the steps, because I know a lot of people when they would be doing step bets, they would put it on their ankle because it's more accurate that way. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know. Is that cheating? But I still feel like, I think it's probably more accurate.
Yeah.
I could put it on my dog. Is that cheating? If I put this,
yes.
That would be cheating. Oh, gotcha.
That would be cheating. But I don't think putting it on your ankle is cheating. I tell people to use them for the data and for the trend. So you might not be walking 2,000 steps a day. Maybe you're only walking 1,500. Who cares? If you can up that, doesn't matter what the actual number is. And we all know that food, I guess we don't all know this, but we all know that food is not 100% accurate on the back of a box.
Love that. I love this conversation.
Yeah, it's like
You want to ruin somebody's day?
Above or below?
Oh my gosh, you want to ruin somebody's day? Like, talk to them about this because I've seen things where it's literally like, okay, your metabolism burns 1,500 calories. If you eat 1,510, by the end of the year, you're going to have gained, 5 or 10 pounds. And I'm like, that is insane. And two,
metabolism is not that like exactly the same thing every single day.
Not like that. So when I started doing habit-based coaching, and this was back around 2015, 2016, I was working with Precision Nutrition. So I was leading people through their program at the time. And one of the things that they would always say about counting calories is the whole thing is an estimate. So like the step counts, as we talked about, that's an estimate. The calories burned estimate, whether we're talking about on our watch or whether we're talking about on exercise machines or whatever. And then when you get to calories, you have the numbers on the box. Those are estimates. The amount of calories absorbed. So we could eat 100 calories of something. Bex might absorb 85, Stephanie might absorb 65, and I might absorb 98 calories. You have no idea. And this is one of those things. I always like to, when people are so absolute, I'm always curious why. So I like to hear them tell me, why is it that this has to be so perfect, fine-tuned and perfect? What do you think of when you don't get there? What's your relationship with failure? That's a whole nother conversation right there. Yeah.
It's also a conversation as someone who went 10 months nothing by mouth and had to rely on both TPN as well as tube feedings. Because in a way, no, I do not come from a disordered eating background, but I went so long without eating by mouth, I had to relearn myself, and I still struggle with it. And I wanted to fill in on something you were talking about, being chronically ill and exercise. Every single time I was like, yeah, Bex, I'm gonna work out now. Can you write a plan for me? Well, fuck, I have to go have another surgery. Never mind. And then it's just like, all right, we're pivoting until literally a month and a half ago, Steph set foot in a motherfucking gym for the first time in almost 4 years.
Awesome.
And I never thought I would actually get the opportunity to do that, other than you can walk and do exercise in bed and sitting. So
which is
that's
what
just what I wanted to add to.
For like 2 years.
Yeah.
We every few months you'd be like, all right, let's what are some exercises I can, every time you would be done with the surgery and you'd be healed right before the next one.
Yeah.
You'd be like, give me a plan that's seated or laying down. We have clients who have POTS or who have EDS or whatever, and they can't do it standing up.
Or have all of them.
All of
me and Bex.
Yeah. And then you have to kind of start literally like where you're at, which is often in bed. And you got to work it up from there, because I know that Steph has dealt with this and I've dealt with this. We get this like all or nothing mentality of, if I'm going to work out, I got to work out. And that means going to a gym, or that means walking, that means getting up, and that means going somewhere else or doing something super active, when in reality, you can start just by moving your arms in a chair or in a bed. I think that's hard for a lot of us to dial it back, because we want to do more. We want to be at point when we're at point A. We've got so much in between.
I will say I surprised myself though.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be able to lift 2-pound weights. I was like doing like shoulder press 65 pounds, and I was like, oh, I do have some muscle still.
There you go.
I think the fear is injury too. That's always my fear.
Oh yeah, I don't want to injure myself.
And with my clients,
your shoulder, and my shoulder likes to be annoying too. And when you have hypermobile EDS, then you're a risk for injuring yourself too.
All the time.
And it's really tough in general, like, as you're mentioning the all or nothing thinking. And I notice when I go to the gym, you'll see people that have been in the gym for most of their life, and they're continuing to try to train like they did in their 20s and 30s when they're in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it has to change.
I know.
And it just, it's challenging. Listen, I was there to, how do you think I got this injury that I'm dealing with right now, right? Like same thing.
How do you think I got a bum shoulder? Same thing.
Yeah.
I just want to synchronize swim with all the old people. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Water aerobics. Love it.
Yes.
Do it.
There you go.
Yeah. Steph, do you have any other questions? Do you want to jump in?
You guys talked about GLP-1s a little bit. As a fitness professional, should you stop complaining about GLP-1s and do this instead, is what you said. What did you mean by that?
There's a lot of, we'll call it, I guess, stigma around GLP-1s where a lot of trainers are saying, well, that's not real, you're not doing the work. It absolutely is. It's shifted, and it's one of these things where how can you help someone by meeting them where they are and helping them along the way? And frankly, if someone has decided with their doctor that this is the path that they want to go down, who are you as Johnny Trainer going to tell them, or Jane Trainer, or whoever, going to tell them like what they're doing is wrong? I think when I answered that, I was in one of my can't stand watching people talk at us and tell us what we should and shouldn't do.
Okay.
So yeah. But no, I mean, GLP-1s are part of the conversation, and it is the same thing that I remember seeing when I first was getting introduced to the bariatric community around 2019 or so, is it was, well, you're not doing it the right way. And it's like,
There is no right way.
yeah, it's just people get off your soapbox and just help people. Beat them where they are. That's what it all comes back.
Yeah, because when we talk about tools in your toolbox, bariatric surgery, GLP-1, medication like phentermine or Contrave, all of those things are tools in your toolbox. And I don't think any person should be judging someone for using something to help them with the chronic disease of obesity. And you do you, pretty much, is like what I say. Yeah.
Especially if you don't know their background, because most of us, by the time we get to the point of wanting to use one of those, we've tried everything else. We've tried everything for years and years and years, and nothing has worked, or nothing has stuck, or maybe we've developed some good habits, but it's not enough. It doesn't push us over that edge to get us where we want to go. And there's only so much that we can do at some point, especially for long-term success.
Yeah.
And that's what leads you to the point of wanting GLP-1s or wanting to get surgery or taking medication.
And I think a couple things, and I think back to when you were talking about how if you can get a fitness professional, personal trainer to sit down with you on a one-on-one conversation, they truly want to help people. They really do.
They do.
And when we're talking about this here, like you're saying, when somebody's at the point where they're deciding to try something different, and something that to others may seem like a little bit more like would seem riskier, right? It's not like they just woke up one day and saw one headline and was like, oh, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. There is a process here. They are trying to figure out what's best for them, and they are trying to figure out how to best navigate something that has been on their mind, again, for the vast majority of their lives. And this is kind of with the world we're in now. We need to sit down and have more one-on-one conversations, because it's completely different when you're talking with somebody versus the propensity that I think people have when they're in a group sometimes. Even when you talk about the trainers, you get 2 or 3 trainers in a room together, and then they start talking about best practices and stuff, which would be completely different than if they were talking to somebody one-on-one. So yeah, I think we need more one-on-one conversation. We need more context. And apparently I'm really big on, let's rewind things. Let's slow down on the technology just a little.
And I always say is like, you can spew the information, but unless the person is there to understand it and wants to listen to it, it's just gonna go out in one ear and out the other. And unfortunately, that's society, and we can't just be mad at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot of what like I have always dealt with in the addiction space is you can't force somebody into rehab and they're just magically going to not be addicted anymore. That's not how it works. You can't force sobriety on somebody. And the same thing is true, is you can't force someone to change their habits and lose weight until that person is ready to hear it and really understand it and do it themselves. That's when the magic's going to happen. You can't force it.
Definitely.
You have to want that change yourself in order to do it.
Yep.
That's exactly it. People don't change until they're ready, and not a moment sooner.
And then when you're ready and you don't know where to start, that's why people like me, Bex, and Daryl are here to help you. And so many other people in the community and Berry Nation. And there's some really good registered dietitians. And talk to your doctor about it first, because we're not your doctor.
Yep. And find a therapist.
It's whatever. Yes, and find a therapist, as we talked about in the beginning of this, because everybody should be in therapy.
Yeah.
Funny how conversations come back to therapy. We
Always.
started with
Yep.
therapy. We're wrapping up with therapy. It's all good.
It's either therapy or poop.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about poop yet. Dang.
There you go. There's your
Just
there's your
kidding.
poop comment.
We talked about fiber though.
We did talk about fiber. Yes.
Exactly. I feel like we could go on and on about all of the things, and we most definitely, I think, should have more conversations and one-on-one stuff because there's so many things to talk about. Me and Beck said that we'll probably have a category for about 3 to 5 years with all the ones we wrote down.
Yeah. We have so many topics, and we already have so many people who want to come on and talk about things.
Oh yeah.
That we have content for you, which is great.
Love it. Love
It's
it.
great.
Yeah.
We love it. We do.
But we want to thank you so much, Daryl, for being on our podcast and checking in again, learning about what you're doing in your personal life and for everyone else in the community. And make sure to shout out your handles and where to find you, your website, your podcast, etc.
Yeah.
And I wore this shirt because you made this. Yes.
So, yes, online, you can go to yourlevelfitness.com. That's kind of the hub for everything. DarylPerry.com, DarylPerry.com. All the stuff's linked out there. And then if you put my name in any of your podcast directories, you're going to find, I don't even know how many shows and thousands of episodes. So I talk a lot. So there you go.
We talk a lot too.
Yeah, same.
Yes. Well, guys, that is a wrap. But guess what? We're now going to go record a Daryl's podcast. Yes, we're excited. All right. Thank you guys for listening.